There we go. That should fix it. Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello. Testing. Testing, making sure we're all working. Making sure that we are working. Should be. My feed's a little slow. There we go. Got it all caught up. All right. Welcome, one and all. Hope you're all having a great one. We are finally back to do more Raven reads. It's been a while since we did this because my throat has been not the best. I've been having some phlegm like in the back of my throat, and so it makes doing voices a little tricky. In fact, funny enough, it's still not great, and you'll probably hear me clear my throat a few times tonight. So I apologize for that in advance. But we're going to try to do some reading because I want to read some more Monster Club with you guys. It's been a while since we did any reading, and I want to do more of that. Not sure how many of y'all are excited for this, but I'm always happy to do some reading. So for those of you who are new and have no idea what's going on, I am a published writer. I am an author, and not all of my works are published. In fact, most of my works are not published. They are either not finished, or they were too personal, or I just didn't really want to publish them. And so what I do in this series is on Monday nights, I try to take some time to read some of my stories to you guys. And we are currently reading through my story, Monster Club. Now, Monster Club is a story that I wrote way back in the day. I think I wrote it back in, when did I write this? Back in 2013, so it is well over 10 years old. I was very much a new writer at the time. And it is the story of a young boy who gets caught up in a cottage full of orphaned misfit monsters. And he ends up forming a sort of family around them. And we are on chapter 14 tonight. We left off on chapter 14. We'll be reading this together. If you have not heard the previous chapters, I invite you to go take a look at my playlist, Raven Reads, where you will see all of the stories that I've read so far, and you should be able to get caught up pretty easily just by finding the Monster Club series and starting with chapter 1. So if you are not familiar and want to get caught up, go watch those, and would be very, very happy to have you listen and hear them. And please leave comments in the down below. Would love to hear your thoughts. So just a couple things that I want to say. The ground rules for the stream remain the same, and some of you may not remember the ground rules, so I'm going to say them here. First ground rule, we don't talk about other content in these streams. We don't talk For Honor, we don't talk politics, we don't talk religion, we don't talk any of that stuff. This is purely meant for reading and stories. If you want to ask questions about the story or about characters, I can answer those in between reading chapters, absolutely, but I don't want to talk about anything else. I want to stay focused on what we're reading here. Second, please be polite with me. I'm having to read all this myself, and there are a few female characters in this story. In fact, a lot of female characters in this story, and I can't do female voices very well, and even the female voices I can try to do aren't going to sound very distinct from each other. So please don't be mean to me in the chat saying, wow, your female voice sounds really cringe. Look, I know it does. Just bear with me, okay? Especially since I've got a weird throat right now. And then third, please be respectful to each other. If someone has a question and you answer it, just try to be cordial to each other. We've got some new people here, and we've got some people here who've been here a while. So really just want everyone to enjoy this. So please be cordial to each other and to me. That's what I asked for. So those are the 3 basic ground rules. Just don't bring up any other topics besides the reading and writing itself, just so that I'm not distracted. Be respectful to me as I try to voice act this, and be respectful to each other. That's pretty much the ground rules. Yeah, already having to clear my throat. All right. So with all that out of the way, let's get started with chapter 14. Now, quick recap, because we're going to be picking up right in the middle of an action scene. We had Abraham and Calypso leave the Walmart supermarket and are walking through the parking lot when they get jumped by a member of the shoot, my head went blank. You ever have that happen, like where you just have a brain fart? Shoot. Gosh, I'm hating myself right now. He gets jumped by Gregory, who is there to try to catch them. He's a Dawnbringer. Why couldn't I remember the Dawnbringer? He's a member of the Dawnbringers, and they're there to try to capture and kill monsters. And so right now, Calypso is exposed. Abraham's there trying to keep her safe. Michelle and Tamil are still in the Walmart. They're going to come out any time now, and they've got to work together to try to get away from Gregory without causing too much of a scene, and he's drawn a gun on them. So Gregory now has a gun. So, all right. Shoot. All right, here we go. Now, this chapter, chapter 14, was written May 13th, 2013. Here we go. Let them go! Abraham spun to look behind Gregory's gun. Behind him was a furious and dangerous-looking Michelle. Her eyes flared with an intense anger. Her fists were clenched. Behind her was Tamil, who looked slightly confused. He couldn't see what was in front of him, of course, but he knew what was going on from the sounds. There was much to be worried about. Abraham dared not move as the hunter, Gregory, turned to face Michelle. So, the werewolf rears her head. And the mummy, too. Anyone else hiding in there with you? I said, let them go, bastard, Michelle snarled. She made a dangerous move towards him, but Gregory made a threatening motion with the gun back towards Calypso. You're not in a position to make threats, wolf, he mocked. Michelle growled dangerously, but slowly lowered her fist to her side, fighting herself to keep from attacking. What do you want? Michelle asked dangerously. Purity, Gregory snapped. You and your kind. A pollution on this earth. You're a plague. And the Dawnbringers won't rest until all of you have been erased, so this world can finally be free of your filth. As he spoke, Abraham noticed that his gun was slightly lowered. He wasn't focused on him. He was too caught up in his own grandeur. He took a few steps closer and began to move towards the gun arm. You touch her, and You'll what, wolf? Gregory barked. You don't have a full moon to aid you. Your pet vampire's locked inside to keep from burning to ashes, and you have a beached mermaid and a mummy who can't see 2 feet in front of him. Meanwhile, I have 3 members of the Cursed Club in front of me. Abraham was getting so close. He reached out one hand cautiously to grab at the pistol. So tell me, dog, what have I to fear from the likes of you? In that moment, Abraham leapt forward and grabbed the gun. With a jerk, Abraham yanked at the pistol, trying to rip it away from Gregory's hand. Gregory let out a yelp. He pulled back and suddenly remembered that Abraham was a threat too. They struggled as Abraham fought to get the gun out of his hand. Michelle dashed across to the lot to get the two of them. Hold on, she screamed. She ran forward and swung at Gregory. He ducked the hit, kicking her in the abdomen, then kneed Abraham in the stomach. Abraham let out a grunt and stumbled as he pulled the pistol away from Abraham. That was stupid, kid. There was a bang. Abraham didn't scream or cry out as he suddenly felt a powerful and shocking feeling flash through his side. It felt as if a bolt of lightning had torn through his side and exploded in his stomach. It stung like fire, and then there was this cold, horribly sick sensation running through his very blood as he felt the object tear through his skin and flesh. He fell over and clutched his side in agony, too shocked, too stunned to cry out. The world seemed to flash different colors as he could hear the sound of Michelle screaming furiously, Calypso shrieking, Tamil sobbing. There was a small trickle of blood from his side and he could feel his torn shirt. I missed you on purpose. You're not the enemy here, kid. But get up again. Try to grab me again. I will kill you, Gregory sneered. He turned to point the gun at Michelle. But before he could make a move, before he could raise the gun, there was a sudden swooshing sound as Calypso, hands grabbing the ground, spun her body across the rock and dirt. She swung with all of her might, and then her fishtail struck at his legs, knocking him off his feet and sending him sprawling to the ground. With a grunt and a cough, Gregory hit the earth face first. Abraham could only watch from where he sat. Michelle, for her part, let out a roar of rage, leaping on Gregory, kicking the gun away from him and pounding him in with her fists. Despite being a head smaller than the man, she showed impressive strength, with each swing of her fist crashing into Gregory's skull. Meanwhile, Calypso was crawling over to Abraham's side. Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you hurt? Calypso cried as she crawled closer, looking at him with concern. Abraham didn't know how to answer. Was he okay? He couldn't tell. He was breathing, but why? He knew he'd been shot. I think so. I don't know. Calypso laid herself next to his side and began to inspect the bleeding wound. It looks like it only grazed you. Oh, thank God, she whispered. Abraham was only half paying attention to her, though. He was lost in his own thoughts. Here he was being looked after by Calypso, after being saved by her. Here he was, an untrained, weak human being, laying with a wound in his side as Michelle viciously pounded the hunter into the dirt. What did he have to do here? What did he have to offer? Asher was so powerful. Michelle was incredible. Even Calypso, who was beached and unable to stand, could put more into a fight than he could. What good was he? Tears rolled up in his eyes at the thought of his own mortality and his own pathetic status in comparison to what was perfectly plain. Oh, am I hurting you? Calypso asked in surprise, noticing his tears. She was trying to bandage his side as best she could with a piece of her shirt. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to stop the bleeding. No, I'm fine, Abraham muttered. There was a sound of a yelp as Michelle climbed to her feet, kicking the unconscious hunter in the mouth. I should kill you, but I'd much rather let you explain yourself to the authorities. She stood up and kicked the gun back over to his hand. She walked over and threw her coat over Calypso's tail. You dry yourself off. She then sat down by Abraham as Calypso got to work. Tamil, come here, quick. Are you okay, Abraham? I'm fine, Michelle, Abraham protested. After a careful analysis, Abraham could tell that he was okay. His wound was just a small graze, or at least seemed to be, but the real injury seemed to be to his pride. Michelle nodded and stood up as Tamil came closer. Tamil, you and I are going to go back to the house and inform Solomon about what happened here. He needs to know. Calypso, you stay with Abraham and make sure he gets back safe once your legs come back. Abraham shook his head. No, I can... Abraham tried to speak up, but Michelle shot him a look that clearly told him she wasn't interested in arguments. Sorry, Abraham, but this is my call. She turned to Tamil and put her hand on his shoulder. Let's go. Michelle took off down the street with Tamil holding onto her shoulder. He ran after her and managed to stay close to her side. Impressive for someone who couldn't see. Calypso tried to dry off her tail, and Abraham could see it slowly converting back to a pair of legs. Abraham, I am so sorry that you got mixed up in all this, Calypso whimpered. Abraham stared at her and closed his eyes in defeat. I'm sorry I couldn't do anything to stop him, Abraham admitted. Calypso looked back at him. What are you talking about? You were trying to save us. But I didn't. You were amazing, though. Calypso blushed at this and shook her head. Well, I thought he'd hurt you. Or worse. I don't know what I was thinking. I just lost control. It was nothing special, Calypso laughed. Yeah, well, why can't I be special? Calypso finally finished drying herself off, and she stood up on her own two legs again. She leaned down and held her hand out to Abraham. Let's go already, please. The police could be here any minute. Abraham reached up and took her hand. She pulled him to his feet, and he stood. His legs felt really weak. His knees buckled. It was as if the gunshot had taken all the energy out of him. Hold on, Calypso cried, holding his arm so that Abraham didn't fall. I'm fine. Abraham insisted, trying to regain his balance. No, you're not. You're still rattled. There was a force in her voice which sounded so odd to Abraham. Normally she stumbled over her words and stuttered out of nerves, but now she sounded stern and concerned. You need to move slowly. She kept her hand on his shoulder and walked beside him slowly towards the street. Where are we going? We're heading back home, stupid. You need to see Asher. Abraham suddenly felt a cold sweat come over him. Asher? Why? Why him? The wound may be infected, and he can clean it, she said in frustration. Let's just put some alcohol on it or something, Abraham asked. The thought of Asher having to help him scared him considerably. We never buy the stuff. It's a waste of money. Asher's saliva is a natural catalyst and blood cleaning agent. Anytime one of us gets an infection or a cut or something like that, we take it to him. Now, can we please go? Abraham tried to argue, but the force in Calypso's voice was so shocking that he found himself tailing her despite her wishes. He shot a glance back at the unconscious and beaten Gregory. What about him? The authorities can take care of him. Now, come on. She pulled harder on his arm until at last Abraham tore his eyes away and obediently followed her to the street. The walk home down the dirt road was long and quiet. Calypso didn't say a word, and whenever Abraham tried to speak, she would shush him, saying that he needed to keep quiet until they got home. The street eventually gave way to trees, and soon they found themselves walking through the forest again. The sky was growing dark, and the moon was starting to rise, glowing in the distance beautifully. It was a crescent moon, and the sight of it reminded him of only a few weeks ago when it had been full, and Michelle had gone on her rampage. The power he'd seen that night from Michelle and Asher had been so devastating. And yet, what good was he? What could he offer the club when they had such power like that already? I'm sorry, Abraham whispered. What for? Calypso asked. The sound of frogs and crickets announced that they were close to the lake. Making all of you go through this just because of me. You're trying to protect us. Yeah, my mistake was thinking I'm strong enough to do that. I'm weak. I'm not like Michelle or Asher, or even you. He suddenly felt a sharp pain in his side and had to stop moving, grunting in agony. Calypso gasped and lifted his jacket to look at the wound. Oh my God, it's deeper than I thought. Come on. Let's get to the docks. I'll clean it off there. She walked Abraham down to a nearby dock and helped him down to sit by the wooden plank near the water. She lifted off his jacket and began to clean the area where he'd been hurt. Oh God, it's probably infected by now. We need Asher right now, but I don't want to move you. Abraham just looked off at the lake, clutching his side. feeling a bit of blood trickle down. Yeah, I screwed up big time. Stop it, Calypso snapped. Abraham looked up to see her eyes were fixed on him now, looking rather pissed off. Look, you're not weak. No, you're not Asher or Michelle, but you're not a weakling. You tried to protect us back there, and that makes you strong. And getting shot like this? Getting my butt handed to me when I had the advantage? Calypso shrugged. Well, we all have our moments. Even Asher. Why, you should have seen him when I first met him. Abraham looked up in shock and stared at Calypso. Asher was weak? Yeah. I had to save him the night we met, actually. Calypso stared off at the lake and smiled. I'll never forget it. Abraham couldn't help but feel slightly interested. What happened? Calypso blushed and looked at Abraham. Well, I think it was a little over a year ago, maybe. And I was out here by the lake. I was just out here by myself. When Asher showed up, Come on, Calypso. The kid suffered enough already without having to know that story. Abraham and Calypso both whirled around to see a dark figure standing by the dock. Asher stood grinning, the moonlight flashing against his fangs. Calypso let out a frightened squeak and blushing terrifically. Without a moment's thought, she dove into the water where her feet instantly turned back into a long and beautiful mermaid's tail. She splashed into the water and dove out of sight, her embarrassed expression still fresh on Abraham's mind. Asher let out a small laugh. I didn't mean to scare her. I'll apologize later. Abraham suddenly realized he was alone with Asher on the docks, the very last person he wanted to be near. Michelle told me that you got hurt by a hunter's bullet. I'm here to see the damage. He knelt down by Abraham, who quickly tensed up and tried to move away. Asher caught this movement and sighed. I see, he muttered. Well, I can't really say I blame you. I'd be scared too. Abraham flushed and looked down. I'm sorry, Asher. No, I get it. Asher then turned to look at Abraham. But with that said, I do need to see that wound. Abraham hesitated for a moment and then finally lifted up his shirt to show the cut. Asher's eyes flashed red for a moment at the sight of the blood, but he shook it off. It's fine. Minor injury. But yeah, I think it could be infected. Better safe than sorry. Hold still. Asher raised 2 fingers to his mouth and proceeded to lick them carefully. He then held his hand down and ran his finger along the cut. Abraham suddenly felt a sudden burst of ecstasy shoot through him around the cut. His body felt limp. He felt weak. He almost slumped over. Ugh! Abraham moaned. Sorry. Vampire spit has that effect. It'll pass. He finished running his hand along the cut and sat down on the dock next to him. I'd stay still while the spit does its work. Abraham nodded weakly and just stared out at the lake. Asher? Yeah? What was that story Calypso was going to tell me? Asher let out a small laugh. She was going to tell you about the night I met her. Yeah. And the day I joined the club, Asher explained. I'd still like to know if you'll tell me. Abraham pressed. Asher turned and looked at him with a smirk and then shook his head. You really want to know? Abraham gave a small nod and Asher shrugged. All right. I mean, it's not like we can go anywhere yet. I suppose it couldn't hurt. He paused, looking down at his feet for a moment. Abraham, the thing you need to understand is that before I joined the club, I was a real monster. I fed to survive, and I quite often had trouble controlling myself. Abraham gulped a little but didn't say anything. The night I joined the club, it was, I'd say a bit over a year ago. And it was, the night looked a lot like this one did. That is chapter 14. Give me a second to get a drink, guys, and we'll read chapter 15. Lark, do you want one? Yeah, just take this one. All right, here we go. Chapter 15. Written May 17th, 2013. This is another memory chapter. So this is Asher's memory. I hungered. My body was on fire with it. I staggered through the cursed forest, searching, sniffing, growling. I hadn't eaten in a long time, and I couldn't afford to. Every day was a battle with myself. I couldn't become a monster. I was me. I was Asher. I wasn't a beast. I needed to control myself. I had to. And yet, it was a hopeless struggle. I felt the rage within, the thirst. Suddenly I perked up. I smelled it. The smell of flesh and blood. The smell of a human. My eyes darted from left to right, scanning for that smell. I saw him, 300 yards away. There was something laying in front of him, but the man was closer, and his smell was delicious. I felt my hunger take hold of my senses, giving in to the madness and hunger as logic fled my mind. I drove through the undergrowth with full speed, the world flying past me as the shadows of the night coated my body in their unholy shroud. My eyes blazed with an insane fury. I felt my thirst drive me like an animal bent on carnage. I was not a creature of nature. I was shadow, a creature spawned and fed by the dark. I was the night, human no more. I was a vampire. Blood was what I desired, and death was my method. I would kill, and I would feed. And thus I fed, and therefore I live. I live, but forever alone. Throwing myself through the forest silently, I stalked the man. He had a bow in his hand and an arrow prepared to fire up at the other figure. My body faded into the shadows and moved as silently and fluidly as a stream of water, until I materialized behind the prey. The meal mentioned something, a threat perhaps, but it mattered little. I was upon him in moments. I hunger. With a swift movement, I clutched his head in my shadowy hand and yanked him up from his kneeling position and snarled at his shouts and bellows for help. I ripped his shirt back, exposing his neck, but I saw through the flesh to what lay within, the pulsing red nectar. The beating of his heart was intoxicating as it quickened, and the feel of his blood was already too much to resist. I wasted no time and plunged my fangs deep into his neck. He couldn't even scream as his blood erupted in a gush of red that filled my mouth and neck, which the shadows quickly consumed, feeding me. I didn't let go of his body, clinging to it with my unhinged jaws and draining every last drop of its precious blood. It was life pouring into my mouth, and I craved it. He made a weak, gurgling sound and began to go pale as a sheet, the blood leaving him and flowing into myself. I felt relief wash over me as the blood flowed through me and filled me. His body went limp as his heart had nothing more to pump. I felt his shell collapse as I swallowed the last of it, and bits of his flesh along with it. The shadows had become my body, consumed all that was left of his blood, so there was nothing left. "Oh my God!" At the sound of the voice, I spun, remembering the other being nearby. I glared at the figure, when my eyes finally adjusted, and saw her for what she was. I froze. The moonlight cast its glow across her beautiful body. She was a mermaid, long, flowing, silvery hair and gorgeous features, the scales of her tail reflecting the light of the moon, seeming to practically glow before my eyes. Her penetrating blue eyes were as deep and as lovely as the ocean itself. Every part of her captured my attention, and my body felt weak just at the sight of her. Deep within my mind, I felt the beast retreat back from her gaze, ashamed of what she was looking at. I was ashamed, embarrassed, horrified at the thought of standing before something so beautiful. What was I to her? I was a monster, a freak. We stared at each other, beauty looking upon beast. I felt tears start to come to my eyes, and I fled from her, back into the embrace of the night. Darkness was where I thrived. I didn't deserve to be gazed upon by something so brilliant. I hid in the shadows as I felt the blood rage pass me. My body resumed its more mortal appearance, and the shadows sank from me. I cowered behind a nearby tree and watched her shamefully. She couldn't see me here. She must have thought I'd left. I stayed there for a long time, praying that I could forget, that I would put it all behind me, but I just couldn't. That look on her face when she saw me and when I'd done, it was too much. After a few moments, I dared to look to see her again. But she wasn't there. She must have run off. I looked at the ground where she lay and saw dainty footprints. I knew that I should probably forget her and go. I didn't belong with anyone. I was alone, after all. I was a vampire and a monster. Where did I belong, if not to the night? But something kept drawing me towards her like a siren song. I wanted to know more about her, that thing of beauty that I'd never seen before. I resisted all logic and reason and decided to follow her. I took the form of a bat and flew into the sky. As a bat, I'm much smaller and much more vulnerable, but it allowed me to move quickly and undetected. I darted quickly across the streets, following her scent. I could practically see her image in my mind, her face, that beautiful body, and the thought itself made me fidgety. Soon I was looking upon a house that I'd never seen before. The scent led me to that building. I flapped my wings slowly, debating my next move. This was my chance to leave her behind forever, to just go, get back to the night and abandon her. It would have been a smarter choice, really. What good could I be to her or her kind? But the thought of leaving her was so depressing that it made me want to cry. I couldn't understand it. I'd never grown so attached to something before. I looked and saw an open window. I made up my mind and flew to it. Within moments, I was inside the house. But then I was stopped in my tracks. Ah! What the hell? I couldn't move. Something had snared me out of thin air and was holding me, keeping me from even flapping my wings. I tried to fight and struggle, but no matter what I did, the invisible force held me. I looked around and saw that this force wasn't invisible, just thin webbing. I was surrounded by spider webs. But it was too strong. I couldn't break free. What kind of room was this? Oh, look, a little bat. My eyes darted to the side of the room to see a young woman by the door, but she wasn't normal. While most women have 2 legs, this one had 8, and all were spider legs. And unlike most women who have 2 eyes, she has 6. She was some kind of spider monster. I'd heard about this kind of thing, but never seen anything like it. I felt a great deal of fear wash over me at the thought of what she might do to me. I trembled and tried to fight the webs again. Oh, no, don't struggle, little guy. You'll only hurt yourself. Here, I'll go get Calypso. She'll know what to do with you. She quickly scurried out of the room, and I was left alone in the webs again. I thought about resuming my normal form, but to do that while trapped in these webs would be a death sentence. It would just tangle me up more. I'd be even more trapped. And they'd see me for what I was. My only hope was that they saw me as some innocent bat and just got me out and let me go. It was the best option I had. He's right here. I looked to see the Spider-Woman return with someone else. It was her. She didn't have her fins this time, but she was just as gorgeous as I remembered. She looked up at me and saw me, smiling. Aw, poor little thing. Sarah, cut him down. I'll take care of it. I felt my body shake as she spoke. Her voice was as lovely as she was. The Spider-Woman walked up to the web and cut it with her finger, allowing me to fall right into the hands of that mermaid. There, that's better, isn't it? I stared at her, feeling my whole body trembling and shivering. Aw, he's shaking. Maybe he's cold. She reached her soft fingers behind my head and began to rub. I couldn't contain myself anymore. Within seconds, I dropped out of her hands onto the floor and resumed my normal shape. The spider girl let out a shriek, and I could only look up shamefully at the mermaid. Please, I'm sorry. I tried to find the right words to say. Should I apologize for what she saw in the forest? Should I tell her my name? Should I say thanks for saving me from those webs? I just didn't know. All she could do was stare at me in a mixture of shock and awe. What's going on in here? Another girl ran in this time. She had piercing blue eyes like a dog, and she had a feral look about her, like an animal. I heard something and... She saw me, and the look she gave me was vicious. Who the hell is this? She didn't wait for my answer. With a swift movement, she grabbed me and threw me out of the spider's room and into the hallway. She jumped on top of me and raised her fist. Instinct kicked in, and I snarled back. I grabbed her fist, but then struck her and threw her off of me into the nearby wall. I jumped to my feet ready to fight, and the girl seemed ready for the same. Stop it! The mermaid screamed, running between me and my opponent. She turned to my attacker. Michelle, don't hurt him! He saved my life earlier! There was a moment of silence as these words sank in. Saved your life? Michelle gasped. Calypso, that thing is a vampire. He was probably saving you for dinner. Calypso nodded, but then turned to look at me with those same eyes. And she had a blush on her face. Maybe, but I don't know.
He seems more like a lost little bat to me.
I blushed heavily and looked down. I apologize. I didn't mean to scare you. If you want me to leave, I'll leave. I don't think that's a good idea. I turned to the sound of a voice and saw an old man walking up the stairs. He had a small beard and a smile on his face, and he was also pretty much translucent. The sun will be coming up soon, and if you don't have shelter, then you won't last. Why not stay here until it goes down again?
What is it with you, Solomon? Michelle barked. How can you just trust him that easily?
Because, Michelle, he's no different from anyone else here. A lost and misunderstood boy, I take it. Solomon winked at me, and I felt a cold chill. How could he know me so well? What else could this ghost know? Could he read me that simply? Michelle paused at his words and fidgeted.
All right. But if he tries anything, I'm staking him myself,
Michelle said roughly, although I detected more humor in her words than anger or real threats. A part of me wanted to decline the offer, but then my eyes fell upon the mermaid, who they called Calypso, and I felt myself respond without meaning to. Thanks, I'd really like to stay. The blush on my face did not compare to the happiness and the anxiousness that filled this lonely heart. And that was chapter 15. Next is chapter 16, written June 15th, 2013. Abraham and Asher walked through the door silently without a word. Abraham wasn't quite sure what to say to Asher after hearing what he had. He still knew so little about Asher, and that made him nervous, but at the same time, he couldn't help but find Asher's story a little comforting. He wasn't some soulless monster or a wild beast. He did have feelings, and he did care, and that knowledge was somehow helpful.
Abraham, there you are! Michelle came walking out from the den with a smile on her face. And I see Asher found you well.
More or less, Abraham answered. He looked to see Solomon standing in the far corner, looking up with a sad smile. There was something in the old man's mind, but he wasn't letting anyone in on it.
That's good to hear, Michelle commented. Listen, Asher, we need to talk.
Abraham turned to see that the smile on Asher's face had faded. Yeah, no kidding. Asher moved forward to stand in front of Michelle, and I need to know what happened at the store. Did he mention my dad?
Asher, please, not here, Michelle hissed, eyeing Abraham. Oh, Abraham, come with me, please.
Abraham turned to see Sarah standing up the hallway. She was motioning for him to come with her and a very rushed expression on her face. Abraham was interested in the conversation going on in front of him, but there was a look of urgency on Sarah's face that told him that he really didn't need to hear this right now. He turned on his heel and hurried over to the concerned spider woman. What's the deal with them? Abraham asked. Sarah sighed and started to move up to the stairs.
Try to understand. We all trust you, but there are some secrets about this house you just aren't ready to learn yet.
You mean like Asher's dad? At the sound of the question, Sarah freezed up in anticipation and anxiety.
We don't talk about that around here, Abraham, she whimpered.
Abraham was shocked to hear genuine fear in her voice. Abraham chose to drop the subject. Sarah remained silent as they walked onto the stairs, past Katie's room and to Tamil's room. She opened the door carefully and went in, Abraham right behind her. Tamil was lying on the bed. His head perked up at the sound of them entering.
Abraham, you are unharmed, yes? He cried.
Yeah, I'm fine, Tamil, Abraham said, but I'm a little confused. Sarah and Tamil both looked very concerned now. They appeared deep in thought, as if having to make a tough decision. How much to tell and how much not to. Sarah looked at Tamil, who sighed sadly and lay back in his bed.
His life in danger as well today. Perhaps best he know now, Tamil offered.
Sarah nodded her agreement.
Well, Abraham, the first thing you need to know is that we've been pestered by those Dawnbringers for a while, Sarah said calmly. Their organization was formed a very long time ago with the sole purpose of hunting people like us, people they deem unworthy to live for the reason that they aren't human.
Well, I know that, Abraham said impatiently. What I want to know is what they have against the club. Sarah looked at Tamil, who was frowning darkly.
Well, I suppose you could say that part of that has to do with Asher. The Dawnbringers were originally vampire hunters. Only about 10 years ago did they start hunting other things. This means that vampires are their primary enemies, and Asher's been their target for a long time. Before he was part of Club, Asher fed freely on innocent people, Tamil elaborated. Dawnbringers track him to us and discover us as a result. And ever since then, the Dawnbringers have been trying to catch us off guard. That's why Asher defends us. He feels it's his responsibility, Sarah explained.
So it's not his job or anything?
Well, no. I mean, certainly he is the strongest one of us, but he blames himself too much, Sarah admitted. None of this is his fault, of course. I'm certain the Dawnbringers would have found us anyway, even if he hadn't come. But he's kind of convinced himself that he is responsible for all this.
Try to tell him he is not. Doesn't listen. Tamil finished for her. Abraham took in all this and turned to Sarah again. So they're after all of you. And what do you do about it?
Usually the only one who can deal with them, like the two assassins the other day, is Asher. He can usually deal with them easy enough, but unfortunately their attacks have been kind of increasing lately. And after Katie got kidnapped, we knew that action needed to be taken. And after this incident at the store, I think Michelle understands that we have to do something now. We can't afford to just wait for them to get closer to us.
All right, sure. What's the plan? Abraham asked.
I don't know, Sarah admitted.
This is what Michelle speak to Asher and Solomon about, Tamil threw in, a smile on his face. They are making a plan. I hope that doesn't mean we're going to war with them or anything, Abraham said.
Oh, nothing like that. That'd be reckless and really dangerous. No. We're probably just going to relocate for a little while. Or, Asher will leave for a while and lead them off our trail. They consider him and Michelle a much higher threat than the rest of us.
Sarah slowly made her way to the other side of the room, crossing her arms.
It's just all too much,
What do you mean? Sarah sniffled and sobbed.
First, Katie gets abducted. Then they follow her back home, and now they attack us at the store. It's becoming too much for me to handle. For any of us to handle, not just me. And then, of course, after what happened with Drake.
Drake? Tamia lurched up from the bed and shivered as Sarah covered her mouth with her hand as if she'd uttered a bad word. Who's Drake? My old man. Abraham spun around to see Asher standing by the door. He looked very serious, and his red eyes were fixed on Abraham.
Asher, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Sarah started to whimper, but Asher held up his hand and smiled. Nah, it's fine, Sarah. I get it. He then turned to Abraham and gave a soft smile that seemed to make Abraham feel a little comforted. I'm sorry to you that you had to deal with the Dawnbringers. I didn't say it earlier, but know that I am sorry. It's not your fault, all the same. Asher interrupted. This fight was never yours. The room fell silent for a long moment as everyone considered the events that had taken place. Abraham felt an odd sense of conflict building up in him. Sure, it wasn't his fight, but had it become his ever since joining the club? How Michelle? Tamil asked quickly. She's fine, but she's worried, and I can't blame her. I am too.
What are we going to do, Asher? Sarah asked.
That's what we're going to discuss. Calypso came back, so we're all meeting in the den. Asher turned on his heel and walked down the hallway. Tamil climbed out of bed and slowly walked to the door himself. Despite being blind, he moved to the door very well, obviously well acquainted with his own room. Sarah walked out with Abraham behind her. When they all got downstairs, Calypso was sitting on the couch silently with Michelle beside her. Katie was coiled up by the coffee table with Solomon standing in the corner. When Katie saw Sarah, she slithered across the carpet to her and they hugged. Tamil found his way to the armchair and sat down. Michelle looked around at everyone and stood up, and once she was sure that everyone was situated and listening, she looked at Asher, who nodded at her.
Well, as you all know, she began, today we were attacked by the Dawnbringer agent. I forget his name now, but it doesn't matter. These attacks have been happening entirely too often. We try to just ignore them and go along with our business, but I'm afraid we can't do that anymore. So action needs to be taken. She shot another glance at Asher, whose expression didn't change. We've decided it might be best if Asher leave for a while. The response to this was met with mixed feelings. Sarah and Katie both hugged each other sadly as Tamil lowered his head angrily, but unable to speak against it. Calypso gasped and jumped to her feet. Leave? But Asher's the only one keeping them from killing all of us. Michelle nodded. But he's also what's drawing them to us. If he leaves for a while, the Dawnbringers might pursue him and leave us alone for a while so we can think of other options. Michelle started. It's the best idea we could come up with, Asher said. Well, I might have an idea, Abraham spoke up. The entire house turned to look at him in surprise. Abraham suddenly lowered his hand, looking and feeling sheepish. Well, sorry, it's not a big deal. Speak up, Abraham, Michelle said. What's your idea? Well, what if we all left the house for a while? Like, I don't know, take a vacation somewhere, Abraham offered. Well, they would still follow us. I'm sure they'd have a way to track us, Michelle responded. Well, I know, but you said that they were tracking Asher, right? But what if Asher wasn't Asher? He could travel as Ashley or something and throw him off their trail. It could confuse them for a while, Asher agreed, but they'd still figure us out. But, a while is all we need, right? We could go somewhere that they'd never expect us to, like, the beach. Who ever heard of a vampire going to the beach? The entire house fell silent for a moment. Abraham, I appreciate your input, but that's a little too risky. Actually, it's not that crazy, Solomon spoke up. No Dawnbringer agent would ever expect to find a vampire at the beach. And if he is disguised as Ashley as they travel, they won't know it's him until it's too late to do anything about it. Solomon, are you serious? Michelle asked. Solomon chuckled. Well, why not? I'll stay here and take care of the house while you're all gone, and you all can take a break from the insanity. It won't be that bad, and the worst thing that can happen is they show up, find you're not here, and move on. Michelle groaned in frustration. Okay, well, what about the rest of you? What do you think? The club all began to consider the option of a trip to the beach. Well, it might be fun to feel sand on my feet again, Tamil laughed. I'm okay with it. Michelle then turned to Katie and Sarah. Well, what about you two? You'll be the hardest ones to get out there. What do you think? I don't think I've ever been to the beach before, Katie admitted. Neither have I, Sarah giggled. We'd love to go. Michelle turned to Calypso. We're going to the beach. I don't even have to ask you, do I? Calypso shook her head with a big smile on her face, and she turned to Asher at last. All right, then. It's up to you, Ash. What do you want to do? The beach is a pretty dangerous place for you. How do you feel about this? Asher leaned against the wall and closed his eyes in thought. All eyes were on him now, waiting for his decision. My only concern is the club's safety. I thought that by leaving, maybe it could be safe, but I also have fear that even if I should leave, this club will still be a target of the Dawnbringers, so I think it's a good idea for us all to stick together, and Abraham is presenting a pretty good idea. I think we should follow through on it. Even if it means turning into Ashley for a day or two, or they'll be exposed to the sun a great deal? Michelle retorted. Asher shrugged. Worse things could happen. Being Ashley for a little while won't kill me, and as for the sun, I think sunblock and a little time in the shade should suffice. I could use a good tan. The group laughed at his joke, even Michelle. All right. I guess the decision's made for me. Pack your things tonight. Tomorrow we're heading to the beach. That was chapter 16. My throat's starting to bother me. Don't know how much longer we can go. We'll probably do this chapter and then wrap up there, just because my throat's starting to get a little angry at me. All right. But before I go, I'll share some images with you guys that you may like. Before I go, I'll share some images. All right. Let's read this chapter, and then we'll start to wrap things up. This one is chapter 17, written June 25th, 2013.
Packing took almost no time at all, as no one really had that much they were looking to take with them. Everyone was excited for the beach and were all acting out of the ordinary. Sarah was giddy and trembling with excitement, running around looking for clothes to wear and helping others to pack their luggage. Tamil stumbled around the room wildly trying to find his suitcase. When asked why he needed it, he would answer, "You take suitcase when you travel, yes?" Abraham found his response hilarious and pointed out that he didn't need to pack anything, just a towel. Michelle was in her room packing. She'd been to the beach before and already had some idea of what she was doing. She had a small bag of towels, a book, and her swimsuit. Katie was by far the most reluctant to pack. She seemed a little too reluctant, but in the end she couldn't hide her own excitement at the thought of seeing it for the first time. Abraham didn't have much to pack, as he had very little to call his own. It was by far Calypso and Asher that were acting the most out of character. Calypso had never looked so excited. The thought of going to the ocean had affected her attitude and actions greatly. Rather than shyly shuffling around the house doing whatever she could to help out, here she was happy and bouncing around the house, asking everyone if they needed any assistance and trying her hardest to contain herself and failing gloriously. Asher, on the other hand, was nervous. He seemed kind of distant now and a lot more on edge. Nervous about going to the beach where there was no protection from the sun, and furthermore, he would have to turn into Ashley for the journey up there. He was also packing his bags, but along with his swim trunks and clothes, he was packing monstrous amounts of sunblock, and Abraham even saw him squeeze an umbrella in. He was taking all the precautions he possibly could. "Abraham, a moment before you leave." Abraham turned to see Solomon standing by the door. He walked outside and joined him in the hallway. "What's up?" "Since my spirit is tied to this house, I can't go with you. But I trust all of you to stay safe and look out for one another, of course," Solomon explained. "Yeah, sure," Abraham said with a grin. "Abraham, you may not be a monster or a supernatural being, but you are without a doubt one of us." He reached into his pocket and pulled out 7 tickets. "Catch the 11:45 train. It'll take you to the Keys. It all runs smoothly. You'll reach your destination by hopefully 1:30 tomorrow." Abraham nodded and stuck the tickets in his back pocket. "I'll take care of him," Abraham said. Solomon suddenly became very serious and leaned close to Abraham. "Listen, boy. There are 3 things you need to keep in mind on this journey. The first is that the full moon is only a week away. Michelle will be acting odd as this comes closer. Try to keep her calm and keep her focused on the beach, not on the lunar calendar. You should be back in time before we reach that point. Second, Katie is just starting to get used to you, but don't push your luck. She's got a long way to go before she trusts you. I suggest keeping some distance between the 2 of you." "I understand." "And finally, Asher is walking into very dangerous territory going to the beach with you. I almost don't want him to go, but I don't want him to miss out either. I want you to keep an eye on his condition. If he starts burning or tiring out or sweating very badly, get him out of the sun, somewhere shady." Abraham nodded, considering the possibility of messing up or even thinking of Asher dying. It was enough to make him shiver. "Hey, Abraham, you coming?" Abraham looked to see that everyone had gathered downstairs. All were carrying bags and were waiting on him. Abraham couldn't understand the need for bags as big as they were carrying. "I'm here. What's up?" Abraham said. Michelle looked around at the room for everyone. "All right, we're almost ready to go. Abraham has our train tickets, and we have our supplies, tents, and food. Now there's only 2 things left to do. First, Katie, Sarah, take these." Michelle handed Katie and Sarah 2 giant suitcases each. Both had wheels on the bottom for them to roll. "When we get to the train station, you 2 will hold these on either side of you to cover your lower half as you move. Once you reach the ticket booth, it'll be up to Calypso and Tamil to make a distraction while you 2 board. Any questions?" "No," Katie answered. "We understand." "Excellent. And lastly," Michelle turned to Asher, who was standing behind the group looking nervous, "you need to get changed." Asher grimaced. "Fine. Give me a sec." Asher breathed in slowly and then shot a dangerous look at Abraham and Sarah. "Don't you dare laugh." Suddenly, Asher's body began to turn dark until it looked like a living shadow. That shadow began to shrink, remolding itself until, standing in the middle of the room where Asher had been, was the small form of Ashley. "I'm ready." "No, not yet, you're not," Michelle laughed. "Go put on your dress and hat. We got to keep the sun off you." Ashley sighed and walked off to get changed. "And Abraham, while we're going there, Ashley's going to pretend to be your cousin. Keep to that story." "Sure. What do I say about the rest of you?" "Friends and family," she answered. The thought was funny, but he also feared what Asher would think of this plan. A few moments later, Ashley returned, walking back with a very large rimmed hat and a cute yellow dress. She looked adorable, but incredibly pissed. The others were all stifling giggles.
What's so funny? Ashley snapped. Oh, nothing, Michelle smiled. But we need to get going if we're going to catch the train.
How do we plan to get there? The question had been on his mind for a while as to how they would get to the train station. It was a good 30 miles away at least. How would they get there without arousing suspicion? Solomon suddenly stepped beside Abraham and dropped a set of keys in his hand. There's a van in the old garage just past the driveway. Used to be mine. It should have some gas to get you there, Solomon explained.
Abraham, you're the only one who looks mostly normal, so you or Michelle will have to drive.
The truth was that Abraham had never driven before in his life. However, the looks on all their faces was simply too much to resist. Everyone was so excited about this trip, and he couldn't let them down.
All right, let's hit the road. How hard can it be?
It was very hard, as it turned out. Abraham had nearly wrecked twice, and everyone in the car was clutching their hearts, terrified of the prospect of imminent death. When they'd finally made it to the train station, Abraham couldn't help but blush and feel embarrassed as his friends all threw themselves out of the car, practically kissing the ground.
Come on, it wasn't that bad, Abraham said, trying to regain some dignity. Yes, it was, Katie snapped. Abraham, don't bother getting your license because no one will let you get behind the wheel ever, Sarah laughed. Why does the world spin underfoot? Can't even see world, but know it is spinning.
Tamil teetered on his legs, trying hard to stay balanced. Abraham ignored their complaining and motioned for them all to follow him. The group made their way to the station. Sarah and Katie both pulled out their suitcases and walked with them on either side of the bodies. The cases did a good job of keeping their lower halves hidden from the sides, but it didn't stop people from looking and wondering what they were doing with such large luggage. The others were getting their own stares of attention. Calypso and Tamil were both the subject of a lot of stares and whispers. Calypso couldn't hide her blue skin, and Tamil's bandages were very easy to see. They tried their best to act natural and continue onward. Michelle and Abraham didn't get much attention as they looked rather normal, but if Ashley had less luck of plenty of people commenting on how cute she looked. Ashley would simply smile and say thanks to everyone who said this, but it was clear she was frustrated. Just bear with it, Asher, Michelle whispered. We'll be there soon. Don't talk to me until we're on the train, Ashley hissed back. She rushed forward and took Abraham's hand and walked with him, playing the part of the little cousin or sister very well. Tickets. Abraham stepped up to the front of the line and reached into his pocket for the tickets. There are 7 of us? The man took his tickets and suddenly frowned. These tickets look old. Not even from this decade. Suddenly Abraham realized that these tickets were from long ago, when Solomon was still alive to get them himself. They'd messed up. You see, suddenly Ashley pulled on Abraham's sleeve and smiled. Can I ride your back? She asked. Abraham nodded and lifted her onto his back, giving her a piggyback ride. She then smiled and stared into the ticket man's eyes, and her eyes glowed a familiar hypnotic red. The tickets are fine, she whispered. The man stared at her and his eyes glazed over. The tickets are fine. Let's get on the train, please. Of course. You can board. He stepped aside. Abraham carried Ashley onto the train car with the others following closely behind. Nice playing there, Asher, Michelle whispered. Ashley giggled. I've been at this a long time now, Ashley replied. Well, thanks to you, we didn't need to cause a scene just to get in, Michelle commented. Shame, too. Tamil and I had brought fireworks for that purpose, Calypso said. We saved them for the beach, then, Tamil said kindly. He had his hand on Sarah's arm as he escorted him onto the train. Katie brought up the rear and slithered into the car, closing the door behind her and locking it. Okay, we won't be bothered now, Katie said assuredly. All of them gathered in the middle of the train car and sat down. They were tired, but happy. They'd finally managed to make it, and their next stop would be the beach. Everyone was itching with excitement and anticipation. Abraham looked around and noticed that Katie had taken a seat in the back. He made sure the others were preoccupied with the conversation before going to take a seat across from her. Hey, he said. Katie looked at him and gave a stern gaze. What? She replied. There was an awkward silence for a moment. Do you want something? She asked. I wanted to know if you wanted some company. Katie looked at him and then out the window as the train was pulling out of the station. Why do you care? She said harshly. I haven't been especially welcoming towards you. Well, we're still part of the same family. Katie gave a small laugh. Listen, human. The others all consider you one of us, so I'll play along with that. But don't expect me to trust you right away. Well, why don't you trust me?
Katie suddenly glared at him. Boy, you have some lousy tact, she sneered. Fine, I don't trust you because you're human and you're male. That enough for you? So you hate me for that? I've been surrounded by your kind since the day I was hatched. You're all nothing but trouble. And I've yet to be proven otherwise, Katie muttered. Well, maybe I can prove you wrong, Abraham said. Katie gave a dark laugh. Huh. I doubt it, she snapped. She then closed her eyes and leaned against the window. Abraham got up to leave. But I hope you can, she whispered almost inaudibly. What did you say? I didn't say anything. Now let me sleep, she hissed before turning away. Abraham knew what he heard, though, and was now more determined than ever to reach her. But that would have to wait. It looked like Sarah was trying to sort through luggage, and he needed to help her. When the train finally came to a stop, the group held back for a while. Michelle had explained that it wasn't safe for them all to leave with the crowd of people there. It was best if they waited for the crowds to clear first. After about 10 minutes or so of waiting, Abraham led the group off the train. Ashley was riding on his back like before, just in case they ran into anyone asking too many questions. Michelle walked behind them, with Sarah and Katie following, carrying their enormous luggage. Tamil and Calypso followed behind, keeping their eyes out for a place to slip away if things got ugly. They were all working in sync. All right, guys, we'll be at the beach soon, Michelle announced, so go find a bathroom and change into your beach clothes. The group scattered and headed off to the bathrooms. The only ones who didn't leave were Abraham, Tamil, and Ashley, who were all fine in what they had on. After a while, the others did return. Michelle was wearing a bikini, and so was Calypso. One look at Calypso caused Ashley to blush and turn away, which looked incredibly odd. Sarah and Katie had put on bikini tops, but their lower halves were wrapped with strange sashes to cover themselves. The side of their smooth skin was breathtaking, and Abraham couldn't help but gaze. What's wrong with you? Michelle asked. Nothing, Abraham answered, trying to regain his composure. Then stop staring like an idiot. Let's go to the beach, Michelle laughed. The trip to the beach only took about 20 minutes. However, they wanted to avoid the populated areas, so instead the trip was much longer than that as they worked to avoid the larger areas. With all the sand spurs, crabs, and other nuisances waiting in the sand, it felt like they would never reach the sandy shores. However, as they made their way to the beach, everyone was growing excited on the point of bursting. Calypso took the lead and sprinted ahead of the rest as the sound of the surf could be just heard. The rest ran to keep up with her, but this was a hard thing to do as Calypso seemed unnaturally drawn to the sound and the smell of the shifting tides. When she made it over the hillside, she gasped. Oh my God. She fell to her knees on the sand and wept slightly, staring in awe at the sight before her. The sea was gorgeous. Its rippled tide ran across the powdered white sand, licking its edge. The rocks and formations surrounded the area and dotted the crystal clear waters. The sun's light reflected off the turning tides, and waves like diamonds floated in the ocean. The relaxing roar of the waves was breathtaking, and the clear skies covered everything as far as the eye could see. The sand tickled their feet and welcomed them to its warmth and beautiful shores. As everyone caught up, their reactions were all very similar to Calypso's. Michelle walked down the sand and smiled a big grin, gazing from the beach to her friends. Katie and Sarah wandered down the sand with Tamil holding onto Sarah's arm. Tamil could feel the sand under his feet, and he smiled, staring blankly around, as if he could take in the sight into his being rather than see it. Abraham carried Ashley down onto the beach, and she looked happy, but she also looked tired. The sun's rays beat down on her, and despite the big hat she was wearing, the heat and the light was starting to affect him, making him weaker. You okay there, Asher? Abraham asked. I'll be fine. Just need to rest, Asher answered, resting her head on Abraham's shoulder. Abraham watched as the others all got to work setting down beach towels and umbrellas. One was quite large so that Ashley could fit under it. Abraham walked her to the umbrella and let her sit down under it. She relaxed and looked out over the water. Abraham, Ashley asked sadly, what's it feel like to walk in the sun? To walk in the light of day freely? Abraham didn't know how to answer that, but only stood watching her. You know, there was a time when I could walk in it, until that right was stripped from me by that stupid bite. I'm really sorry, Asher. Ashley laughed and waved it off. Don't worry, I'm just being melodramatic, I guess. Go enjoy the beach. Ashley reached into her own bag and pulled out a book and began to read, the coastal winds whipping at her dress and hat. Abraham nodded and turned to look at the others. Calypso was already in the water, swimming, splashing with her tail. She was clearly having the time of her life. Tamil was on the edge of the shore with Katie. He had his bandaged hands in the water and was feeling it, as if the touch of the ocean was a new experience for him, which it probably was. Katie was giggling and spraying water in his face, which caused him to gasp in shock. Michelle and Sarah were wading through the surf and letting the water wash over their legs as they laughed and splashed each other. Seems like they're really having fun already,
Abraham commented. Don't you want to enjoy yourself?
Ashley shook her head. This is enjoying myself. Don't worry, when the sun goes down, I'll come out and join you, but for now I'll wait. Go.
Okay, but I better not come back and find a pile of ash where you're sitting, Abraham laughed.
I've got sunscreen. Now get out of here.
Abraham laughed and ran out to the water to join the others. Ashley watched him run off and then shot a glance at everyone. There were smiles on everyone's faces. They all seemed happy, carefree. That was really what she wanted to see. And that was chapter 17. Let me make a quick edit. We'll close on 17. Before we go, I will share some images with you guys. One moment. Because there were some images that were made regarding these chapters. Let me get them real quick. These are very old images drawn by an old friend of mine who partnered with me on the Monster Club story. Save that one. All right, now I will share them with you. All right, so first up, let me show you an image. Do y'all remember the Asher backstory? Well, that was drawn in a comic format. It's a little hard to see, but you can basically see in panel format Asher attacking the hunter in the woods, and then Calypso noticing him and him noticing her. I'll leave that up there for a second so y'all can see it. All right. Now for the next one. This was an image drawn of when so after they leave the Walmart and get into the woods again, when Asher shows up and Calypso dives into the water to get away because she got spooked. This is the image drawn for that. Increase the size a little bit. You can actually just make out Calypso's fin in between Abraham and Asher. Asher kind of looking away in humor. Leave that up for another second. All right. Now this next one is after they get back inside when Abraham, Sarah, and Tamil are talking in Tamil's room. When Abraham is getting some more information about why the Dawnbringers are after them. I like this image because it shows Tamil just kind of laying back. The Sarah image could have been a bit better, I feel like, but I wasn't the artist who drew this, so, you know, take what you can get. All right, leave that up for another second. All right. This next one is an image of the group arriving at the beach. This is a long picture. So I will increase the size, bring it down, and you should be able to see it pretty well. On the far left-hand side, you have Abraham with Asher, disguised as Ashley, riding his back, both a little bit annoyed with each other. You have Michelle after them, looking pleased. Calypso in the middle, the happiest of the group to be going to the beach. Tamil, who can't see a damn thing because he's blind. And Sarah and Katie leading him. I never really... Mika, who is the one who drew this art, she and I disagreed a little bit on how Sarah should look. Hannah, my friend, actually did a better job, in my opinion, of designing Sarah, and I'll show what Sarah is supposed to look like later. But this is still good art, and it was nice of her to do it, you know. I mean, at the time, she and I were partners and working together to make these stories, so... All right, and just for fun, I will share some other art that I have not shared in the past. So let's see. Okay, here's one. I'm making sure that I have them all saved so that I can show them to you. One second. There we go. Found them. Found them. Found them. Okay, we're good. I will share with you guys the image of Sarah that I prefer. But first, let's get over here. So, first of all, this image is the image that was drawn of when Michelle, Tamil, Calypso, and Abraham are going to the store together. Thought it was good art. Are there any good Monster Hunter groups in the story? If I ever decided to write a sequel, maybe there would be, but no, the Dawnbringers are the only Monster Hunter group that I created. Leave that up for another second. All right. Now this next one, kind of going to show you the difference. All right. So I'm going to put up two images. I'm going to put up two images for you guys. Actually, you know what? Better yet, I'll put up three. I'll put up three images. This will make it more fun. All right, so the first image I'm going to show was Mika's original drawing of Sarah. This was Mika's original drawing of Sarah, the first one. And so as you can see, it was the original art of Sarah. The abdomen is kind of sticking straight up. The legs are straight down. It didn't look too much like a spider, and the eyes are very much normal, just red. That was the initial idea that Mika came up with. I wanted to change it some, but it was hard to kind of contextualize or articulate what I wanted to see. So that was the first image of Sarah that was drawn. Then, after Mika dropped out of the project, Mika and I stopped talking to each other. We are no longer in communique. Hannah stepped up and offered to draw or redraw the characters. And so she drew Sarah like this. Let me get rid of the old art. I'll put up this one. This was her new image of Sarah. And as you can see, it looks absolutely gorgeous. I'll make it a little bigger. You can see it looks a lot more like what a Spider Girl would probably look like. Looks absolutely gorgeous, well structured. You got the 6 eyes now instead of just the one, and they are not pupilled. In fact, she also drew it from the back, so it looks just really, really good. Huge props to Hannah for how good she did here. This is a much better image of Sarah. I think it looks absolutely phenomenal. But as you can see, she did an amazing job. Then, when the visual novel was created, my other friend who helped create that drew the newest version of Sarah, which looks like this. So as you can see, Sarah has gone through a bit of a growth. I'll leave that up for a second. Yeah, it looks great. Just looks really, really good. So now y'all have a pretty good idea of what she looks like. Oh, shoot. I did not mean to do that. My bad. One second. That was my mistake. I messed up. I apologize, guys. One moment. There we go. All right, there we go. That's better. All right, there we go. So while I'm here, while I've got you, do you want to see any more of the images before I go? Do y'all want to see it? Because we've only got about, I think, 6 people watching. So if y'all want to just call it here, since there's so few people on, I can call it here. But if y'all want to see the rest, we can. I can at least look at one more if y'all want. All right, yeah, we can do one more, I think. One more is fine. All right, let's see. Uh, let's do um let's do Katie. Let's do Katie. So this is the first image that was drawn of Katie. Pull that up. So this was the first image that was drawn of Katie. This was by Mika. As you can see, it's pretty basic. I think Mika, when we initially designed her, we made her to be a lot younger. I think we were aiming to make her like a kid, which is why she looks so young in this. I think that's the reason. But we did change that, especially Hannah changed that when she got hold of the character. Because like I said, when Mika and I broke contact and she stopped helping me with the story, Hannah basically took over. So that is what she looks like. I'll leave that up for just a second. That gives me a minute to get Hannah's image. All right. Gosh dang it. I messed up again. I meant to get rid of Katie's image, but I messed up. Losing my mind, I am. There we go. All right, so now let me show you Hannah's image, because Hannah drew her to look like this. As you can see, she made her a little bit older now. She looks a little bit older. And she also gave her a full body tail, which helped, and Hannah drew the back as well, so that you can get a better look at it. You can kind of see what we were going for here. We did want Katie to be Indian. That was the goal. And she came out really, really nice. And Hannah liked drawing her so much, she ended up drawing a custom one where Katie is dancing. You can get a good look at it here. Because we came up with the idea that Katie loves music. So we thought that it would look really, really good if Katie was dancing. And I'll leave that up for just a second so y'all can see that. What snake served as it? We didn't really have a snake in mind. We just were going for the snake motif. But then, of course, as y'all know, the video game was made, the visual novel. And so that meant that my other friend who helped me make that, who has asked me to keep her name anonymous, drew this. And I think it came out really, really well. One of the reasons Monster Club means so much to me is because of how much it's just grown. Like, it went from this small little project that I worked on with a friend that was kind of just for fun and for giggles and for ideas. And then Hannah and I worked on it together to finish the story, and then another friend approached to make a video game out of it, and it's just grown so much. This is a story that I have so much connection to. All the characters are so unique to me. I want to do a video. I really do. I want to do a video where I just talk about each individual character and what I went through to make them and how I came up with them. But I know no one would watch that. That's the problem. I don't think anyone would watch that, which is really sad. I don't think anyone would. Sad as it is, I think that is just the way it is. Tell you what, we're having fun with this. Let's do the last one. Let's do Michelle. Let's do one last one. We'll do Michelle. Because I feel like Michelle needs her moment. I feel like Michelle needs her moment. So I will share Michelle. Do you have one of Abraham from the game? No, and that's because Abraham was the POV character. It was a, the game is what you call a visual novel game, and Abraham is the POV character. So everything is viewed from Abraham's perspective. Let me back up. Make sure I have the image. I do. Excellent. All right. So first of all, This is the original art of Michelle. When Mika drew her, she made her look very much mature and alluring. I think that's because initially, I think we were planning on making Michelle the love interest for Abraham. I think that was our initial plan. And I don't want to give away too much, but we sort of kind of backed off of that, or I did anyway in the writing. But we did want to make her more of, I think at the time, the love interest. We wanted to go off of like a dog kind of feel, like make her a little bit wild looking, and I think that came off really well here. Like Mika and I may not be friends anymore, but I got to give credit where credit's due. She did a good job of capturing that here. All right. Next up came Hannah's art of her. Which looks like this. Nothing too crazy here. Hannah toned back a little bit on the sexy, alluring kind of look, making her a little bit more like the average character. In fact, I think that she went a little bit more into making her look more like a little bit more rough, a little bit more wild in the face and hair. And I appreciated that. So I think that came out really well. You also get the back here. But then, of course, the last one to be made was for the video game. And this is the one that was made. And I think this one probably captures her the most beautifully. Because this one I like because she looks tired. And I think that's something we needed to emphasize with Michelle. Just the fatigue, just the tiredness, because she is a very tired character. But that is all I will share for now. I had a good time sharing all this with you. This was really fun. Maybe next time we read, I'll share some more images with you, especially since we'll be making more headway in the story. But I think that will end it for tonight. Thank you all so much. Tomorrow is Tuesday, but tomorrow's going to be a little interesting. Normally, I don't stream on Tuesdays because of Bible study, but I'm not teaching Bible study tomorrow. If I get back with enough time, we'll stream something. If not, I will stream Wednesday. So thank you guys so much. And as always, I will see you in my next video. Take care, guys.